Hey guys, it's Blogan here. In today's lesson I'll show you how to output information to the console. Most programs do three things: receive information from the user, process it, and output the information somewhere. During the course we'll learn how to do all this, but first we need to learn the most basic thing: displaying text on the screen. When you install Visual Studio, you install the C++ standard library along with the C++ compiler. It contains a huge number of files that contain an even larger number of different tools for different jobs. The most important file in this library is the I/O stream. It stands for Input-Output Stream. You don't yet understand what this means. We'll look at input-output streams in more detail in a separate lesson. Now we need to know that it contains the tools we need for displaying information on the screen and for entering information from the keyboard and more. In order to use the tools of any other file in your main CPP file, you must include that file in your file. Include means to copy the entire content of this file. We, of course, can go into the I/O stream file and manually copy all the code from there, but it's better to use the include command. In one of the future lessons, I'll tell you about preprocessor directives, among which there is the include directive. For now, just think of include as a command that copies the content of the file you specify to wherever you use it. Let's include this file. In C++, there is such a thing as a preprocessor. I talked about it in the second lesson. It has its own commands that start with the hash symbol. Let's write the command include I/O stream. Please note that as you write this text, a small window appears. It's called IntelliSense window. Microsoft came up with IntelliSense technology, which consists of auto-completion of your code. If you start writing an entity that Visual Studio knows, it will try to guess what entity you want to write next. And the more letters you write about the entity, the more accurately it produces the result. As soon as you see what you need in the list of possible items, you can press the Tab key, and Visual Studio itself will complete the spelling for you. Using this technology, the speed of writing code increases. I use it all the time and we'll talk about it more than once during the course. Note also that your include command has one color and I/O stream another. Every preprocessor directive in my setting is gray, and every file name in this command is this color. Before you use the tools in this file, you should know the following. Every entity in C++ that has its own name can be placed in a specific area, which also has its own name. Imagine that you are an entity called Jack. You are human, but the Jack instrument is next to you. And so, you and the tool ended up in the C++ program. How can a program understand that the word Jack is a person or a tool? You can put these names in different areas that have their own names. For example, you could put the Jack person in an area called People, and the Jack tool can be placed in the area named Tools. And now, every time in your program, if you want to use either a person or a tool, you specify not only their names, but also the names of the areas in which they are located. That is, you'll need to write People Jack and Tools Jack in the code. Now the compiler understands the difference. So these named areas are called namespaces in C++. I'll talk about them in more detail in a separate lesson. By now, you should know that most of the tools in C++ standard library are in the STD namespace, which stands for standard. That is, every time you use tools of this space, you'll need to specify its name, STD. There is a workaround for this problem, but I'll cover that in the lesson about namespaces. All my namespaces are red. Right now I'm writing STD. What's next? Next you need to write a colon twice. This is a special command called an operator, thanks to which you can tell the code to get inside the namespace. And in IntelliSense, we see how much there is in this space. Now we only need one tool, std cout. Cout is short for console output or character output. Thanks to it, we can access the console and ask it to display text on the screen. In fact, this is a global variable of the OStream class type, but you don't yet know about variables, global variables, or classes. Therefore, let's consider this a certain object that can perform some functionality or rather display text on the screen. And now we've reached the final of this lesson, how to display text on the screen using this tool. First, throughout many of the lessons, we'll be writing commands after the opening curly brace of the main function, but before the return 0 command, because if you write commands after return 0, they simply won't execute. Secondly, we have to write stdcout and 2 left angle brackets. Consider that you're forming a sentence that says cout display. In fact, this is a bit shift operator to the left, but we'll also look at it in the following lessons. After this, we need to specify what exactly we want to display on the screen. Since we want to display text, you should know that in this command you need to put it in double quotes. Thanks to this, the compiler understands that this is text and not some kind of entity from the C++ language. As you can see, it even has its own color. Thirdly, since we're writing a command in C++, it must end with a semicolon. You can see that the return 0 command also ends with this. That's all. Let's run it and watch. And here it is, our text. Now you know how to display text on the screen, but there's one more thing to say. You can write as many commands as you want in functions, so we can write as many output commands as we want. Let me write 3 commands with different text and run the program. Here you'll see 2 things. Firstly, the text was output, and secondly, it wasn't that output as you might expect. If you wrote all the commands on separate lines, this doesn't mean that all 3 texts will be displayed on separate lines. The fact is that when displaying information on the screen, you by yourself must indicate where to move to a new line. There is a special symbol for this, which we're going to study in the next lesson. Now practice printing text. Write several commands in one line, remove std, and look at the error description, remove cout and also look at the description. Try removing the semicolon to also examine compiler errors. Don't be shy. And that's the end of this lesson. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, you can support me by liking this video, writing a comment under it, subscribing to the channel, donating using the link in the video description, or becoming a sponsor of my channel. All these things popularize my channel and motivate me to continue recording lessons for you. Goodbye.